Last week, we started with the webinar series where we talk about laying the foundation and mastering literature reviews, which was presented by Mr. Bidemi Ogutuji. I believe it was well received for most of you that attended last time, and I hope you are excited about what we will be learning as well today. Again, my name is Philip Adebayo, and I will be your host today. And we have the honor and the privilege of having the incoming doctor, Ayomide Adeoye, who is currently pursuing his PhD in bioengineering at the University of California, Merced. I will do a brief introduction about him, and then we can start the business for today. And I'm aware most of you must have seen the flyer and probably know a bit about our speaker for today. But I would like to go through his profile once again for all of us to see. So Mr. Ayomide Adeoye, like I said, is a PhD candidate at the University of California, Merced. He's a passionate researcher with a background in mechanical engineering. He earned his undergraduate degree from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. During his undergraduate internship with the Department of Engineering at the University College Hospital, he worked on air conditioning maintenance in emergency units. The experience at the emergency unit sparked his interest in the intersection of engineering and healthcare and ultimately inspired him to pursue a career in biomedical engineering. He was awarded the prestigious Mastercard Foundation Scholarship to pursue his master's degree in biomedical engineering at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. And building on that foundation, he's currently pursuing a PhD in bioengineering at the University of California, Merced, where he continues to explore innovative solutions at the interface of engineering and medicine. Without any further ado, I will hand over to our speaker today, incoming Dr. Ayomide Adeoye, to go straight into his presentation today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Philip, for the kind introduction. Going into my slide, I would like to share my screen
Yeah,
first.
go ahead and share.
Yeah, I think. Share. Um, so, Philip, I guess, I don't know the screen you are seeing now. Are you just seeing the main screen?
Yes, just the main screen, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for the kind introduction and for the privilege to present on your great platform. As I said, my name is Ayomide Adeoye. I and Philip have been friends for years. We met during my undergraduate studies at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria, before we proceeded for our masters together at the American University of Beirut in Lebanon. And after that, I transitioned into my PhD in the US, while Philip moved to Canada. So as I said, my research is focused on how I've been engineering protein for the development of various therapeutic materials that could be used for treatment of diseases. And as a side work of my volunteering activity, I work as a peer reviewer for different manuscripts, different journals, and also like as a judge for different prestigious conferences. So what I'll be discussing today will be based on my experience working as a judge and also based on my experience based on my experience in evaluating other people's work. So I hope all my presentation today is going to equip you with the knowledge or skills you need in building a strong methodology for your research project or your academic writing. So going into details, so today I'll be discussing about building a strong methodology. So please, if I'm too fast, let me know so that I can try to slow down. So building a strong methodology, in different research, when you are writing your research or when you are building a house, there are various components of a house that comes together to form a house. So you can't just say you want to build a house without looking into different key aspects. So all these components are really important. Like for instance, so for instance, if you want to build a foundation, there are some materials you use to build your foundation. And if you once you have a solid foundation, you can build all your structures on it. So mostly you are bringing different components together to form a house. So same thing applies to your research. You are bringing different components into your research to form a project or a manuscript. This involve like I don't know why okay. This involves like the title, the abstract, introduction, materials and method, the result and discussion, conclusion and references. All these are what comes together to form a research project. Without each part of this, you cannot have a solid research project. And each part is really crucial for your project. But today I'll be discussing about methodology, how to build a strong methodology. That will be the focus of today's talk. So just a brief outline of what I'll be discussing about. Sorry, I'm looking up. I have a second screen I'm looking at as I'm actually looking up. So what I'll be discussing today is about research methodology. What is research methodology? How is why is it very important? Why it matters? The various components that make up a strong research methodology, that is parts that make up like a robust research methodology. Then I'll be discussing about the common mistake early career researchers make in building their research methodology and how to avoid these mistakes. And lastly, I'll be using some of the manuscripts, one of the manuscripts I've published. I'll be using it as a case study on how to build a strong research methodology and also how to write a strong research methodology. And I'll be concluding my presentation by giving some few tips on building a strong research methodology. So as we all know, before building a house, you have to have the objective, like you have to foresee your house. If you want to build a house that is like two-story building, three-story building, just a house that has a basement, you have this idea that okay, this is what I want. Then when you have this idea, you can go to an architect in which that would help to design this house. It comes up with a plan of okay, this is how the floor will look like. It comes up with another plan of this how the structure is going to look like, and all these structures and floors, it has different dimensions, it has different scaling and stuff. So all this in general, before building a house, what I'm trying to say is that you have to have an objective, foresee how you want your house to look like. Then you come up with a plan by an architect to design a plan of okay, these are the components that is necessary in order to achieve this house. So in general, this component or this plan is like the blueprint of the house you want to build. So same thing goes to like research methodology. You see your research methodology as the blueprint of your research. So irrespective, if you have a strong objective, if you have like a good plan of okay, I want to develop a method that could be used to treat disease. I want to develop a method that could be used in construction of house that can move from one place to another. I want to develop a house that can withstand hurricane or withstand tornado. You have to come up with a plan of like okay, what are the major components you need in order to build this house. So in other words, you have to have a blueprint of your objective. And this is where research methodology comes in. So the methodology is the blueprint of whatever research you are designing. And this research methodology it's composed of different areas. And one of it is the research design. How you how you plan to design this research, how you plan the design you plan to follow in order to achieve this objective. Then the data collection method. What are the data type you required in order to achieve this aim? What are the data type? Is it objective? Is it objective? Is it qualitative data? Is it quantitative data? Or is it mixture of both quantitative and qualitative data? So these are some of the things you have to like think about, and also how you have to collect this data. Are you collecting this data using like online software? Are you collecting this data using like various material that has been provided online? Those are the things you have to really think about when building your research methodology. And how you also plan to analyze the data is also really important. The strategy you plan in executing or in analyzing this data is also an important aspect of your research methodology. And lastly, the ethical consideration. So in every research methodology, you have to consider the ethics that is guiding it. And one of these is like, for instance, if you are trying to do a study that has to do with, let's say, for instance, you are trying to study, uh, you are trying to use an animal model to study the effect of various therapeutic materials. So if you are using animal model, the ethical consideration requires like when you design your research plan, you have to take it to like institutional review of wherever institution you are doing your research to review all the experimental process you've put in place in order to use animals for your study. So they kind of review all the experimental process you put in place in order to see that okay, this method is safe. You can proceed with this method. And for instance, if you are trying to conduct a study of, for instance, I was talking to my fiance a few days ago about how they can use. She was talking about a research they develop a material that could be used, a contraceptive material that could be used to prevent pregnancy. So they are doing clinical trials. They've already done the project, but they want to test the efficacy of this project they've developed, this contraceptive they developed. So in order to do that, they are recruiting participants to do that. But the ethical consideration in this is that when you are recruiting participants to carry your research methodology, you have to give the participants enlighten them on like, okay, this is the objective of our research, and these are the potential risks of our research. So all your participants must know the potential risk. That is part of the ethical consideration in research methodology. And also you have to also let them know, okay, they have to let them know that they can withdraw from research for people that are doing research that have to do like using people from different areas to execute your to achieve your objective. So you have to give them the privilege to be able to withdraw from the study whenever they like. So for instance, when they were doing the study about contraceptive, they realized that one of the participants, when they used like the contraceptive, is having a negative effect on the participant. The participant complained about this to the recruiter, and they have to like drop out. So these are part of the ethical consideration when you are building your research methodology. So basically, your research methodology is a very crucial and important part of your research. Same thing as your objective. Even if you have a good objective, you have a good scope. If your research methodology is not solid enough, then it means people might not really be convinced about how you achieve your result. So going deeper into the importance of research methodology. So another thing to highlight in research methodology is that when you are designing your research methodology, you have to think of how this can also be executed by other researchers, not only you. How this can be used by other researchers to carry out this another project. So the importance of research methodology is that it allows you to show understanding of your project. So you know that when you're designing your research methodology, you have to put it at the back of your mind that you are trying to show other people that are reading your project that you actually understand this project, and you can display that through your research methodology. It also ensures the validity and reliability of your research. So when developing your research methodology, you have to be aware of the potential. Okay, I'm just going to align this together and I'm going to explain it. So it also allows the application of your research method and transparency. It allows you to identify and discuss the limitation. So when building your research methodology, it is important for you to know that you have to be aware of the various limitations that comes with your research methodology. And you have to weigh these pros and cons to see, okay, these are the advantage of the methodology I'm using, and this is how it outweighs this disadvantage. So you have to be aware of that, and you have to consider that when building your research methodology. And lastly, it is very important because it helps to increase your credibility as a researcher. So if you develop a good research methodology, if people are reading your research and feel that okay, this method you've used to achieve this aim is really valid, it is one of the process which people can cite your work, they can look into your work, and this, higher your citations, the more your relevance in academic writing. So which means your research methodology is really an important aspect of your research. So even though you have like a good objective, you have good research plan, you have good research methodology, good research objective, you have good title. If your methodology is not solid enough, or if it's not convincing enough, it might make your project to be rejected. So work as my experience working as a peer reviewer, I've seen some people listing like good research projects, good topic, good objective, but when I see their research methodology, how they plan to execute their project, the method they use in collecting their data, I'm like, no, this there's something wrong. So it's more like it then makes your objectives or your research topic not to be valid. So now, the next thing I'm going to discuss about is steps for preparing a good research methodology. So as I said earlier, that when you're preparing a methodology, when you're building a house, you know the plan of the house is that I want a house, two-story building that has an underground. You have to have this objective. Same thing applies to your research. So when you're working on a research project, first thing that you always have to have in mind is the focus of your aim and your objective. You have to know that. Then the second thing is identify the various research methodology that suit your research problem. So there are various research methodology that has been developed that might align with your project, or that you think that might be suitable for a project. So you have to go outside, seek online different methodology that has been used, or research method that has been used to achieve something similar to that. Then you have to look when you search online and see, evaluate all the methodology. Then you have to think about, okay, which of this method works for my project. You have to weigh the pros and cons of this method. If I use this method, what are the advantages? If I use the other method, what are the disadvantages? So you have to weigh both the pros and cons of this method before selecting a methodology that that could be reliable for a project. Then the next thing is you have to consider your audience when designing your research methodology. Now, who are the audience I need to use? If your research methodology is based on collection of data from people, recruiting people in order to achieve your objective, you have to consider the potential risk to the audience or the participants, and you have to enlighten them on like, okay, this is the research objective. This is our plan to execute this research objective, and these are the potential risk of it. So mostly it's also like ethical consideration. And if you are doing research that has to do with like using animals model, the potential risk, the audience here is that the people around you, and that is why you have to go through a review board in your institution to tell them, okay, these are the things that I want to do, and this is the experimental plan I've developed to execute it. Then they look at it and evaluate it in order to be sure of, okay, this is safe. So you have to consider your audience in designing your research methodology. Then when you acquire your data, then what are the various methods you plan to use to collect your data, and also how do you plan to analyze the data? They are very important aspects. So in general, when you're trying to build a strong research methodology, you have to think about the objective of your research. And based on this objective, you have to seek online to see, or different manuscripts to see the various methods they've used in order to collect data that suit this research. Then you have to think, okay, what are the various methods that are available? Why should I select this method over this other method? So you have to weigh the pros and cons. Then if you are using participants, you have to think of like your participants, think of their safety as well. So those are the things you have to put into consideration. And how you plan to collect this data? Are you planning to use quantitative data for your research methodology, quantitative data, the mixed, or are you planning to use mixed of both? And when you do all these things, you have to also think, what if this thing doesn't go the way I want? What is my fallback if it doesn't go the way I want? So you have to think of all those things before going on with your research, with your research project. So now going into the common mistakes to avoid when building your research methodology. One, you have to state the question clearly. So before starting any project or before writing your research methodology, you have to think about, okay, what is the question I'm trying to answer? Has this question been answered before? What are the various methods that has been used to answer this question? So the mistake to avoid is not starting without a clear question is a mistake you need to avoid. Also, not right when doing the research and methodology at times, you have to always like write down the steps you have used in acquiring this methodology. And the reason why I say this is because there are some times when you plan to do a project, you start your project, you start the research methodology you've developed, you start with it, and in the process of it, you might realize that this method is not working. Then you have to develop another method to achieve your objective. So you have to write details of this down because in coming years you might want to like publish this project. So if the details is not written down, there's no way by which you can go back to this to actually know, okay, these are the steps or these are the things I do in order to achieve my objective. So another thing is choosing the wrong methodology for your goals. So and that is why it's very important for you to like do your research to think of, okay, what are the various methods that has been used for something similar to this, and what are the pros. You have to be aware of the pros and cons that are associated with each method. And another mistake to avoid is ignoring sample bias. So irrespective of the methodology you use, people already know that there are times there are some limitations that are associated with this methodology. So you have to be aware of that and you have to state it clearly when writing your research methodology. Then the lastly is overlooking ethical approval. So, in doing your research methodology, in writing your research methodology, or in building it for manuscript publication, you overlooking ethical approval is one of the mistakes some people make. So, you have to seek ethical approval, and this has to do like for instance, people do with in vivo experiment. You have to seek ethical approval from like review board in your school. Okay, these are the method I want to use, and they have to approve it. For people recruiting participants, you have to seek ethical approval for the participants you are recruiting, because you can't just recruit anyone into your study without approval. If something goes wrong with them, I mean, everything is on you. So based on this, in general, you have to also know that your research methodology should be built in such a way that if anyone wants to use this method, they can be able to execute it even if you are not there. And that is why we publish paper. We publish paper in order to add to knowledge people already have or to contribute to the knowledge. So your research methodology is also playing a role in this publication. So basically, now using now, I've given you a brief background on the various things to consider when building your research methodology. But now, I'll just be using a manuscript which I published and also some other manuscript to like give you an overview of how your research methodology should look like. And probably this is going to shed more light to what I've discussed. So, just for people that doesn't have science background, because I know this, um, trying to play this video. So, okay, just for people that doesn't have background about what I want to say, that's why I'm showing this video. So basically, I'll be talking about hydrogels, and I just want to show you a video to see what hydrogel looks like. So this is an example of hydrogel, and they are used for various therapeutic purposes. Some people use it in treatment of arthritis, and this is more like a soft hydrogel. You see, when it's been applied, it's kind of like just blend with the skin. So this is an example of a very soft hydrogel, and this is what I'll be talking on. So the research I'll be talking on is titled "A Simple Method to determine diffusion coefficient in soft hydrogel for drug delivery and biomedical application. And the objective of this research is that I'm trying to develop a method that could be used to study how particles of different sizes diffuses in soft hydrogels. So there are various methods that has been developed in general to study how particles diffuses in hydrogel. This is not a new thing that's in the field of biomedical engineering, but I'm proposing a new method that could be used for this study. And when proposing this method, I have to think to build my research methodology. I have to think of, okay, what is my aim? What am I trying to propose to people? How do I plan to execute this plan? What are the various limitations that are associated with this method I want to use? So those are some of the things I have to put in place before while designing my research methodology. So first, I have to think, as I said, I have to think of the instruments. What are the various instruments that has been used before? And what is the advantage of the instrument I'm using now over the previous one that has been established? Do I need ethical consideration in my project? Do I need to like discuss about some of the limitations that are associated with my project or not? So just going into a little bit of what it is, just for people to have an idea of what I want to discuss before going into like the various aspects of the research methodology. So as I said, that I'm trying to develop a method that could be used to determine how particle diffuses in hydrogen. So I know there are different methods that has been developed, but I want to propose a new method. And this is how it works. I'm saying that I make my soft hydrogel in something like an Eppendorf tube in a tube. Then I add my fluorescent particle. I just add the dye into it. This dye are made of different. So this dye are made of different sizes. So I allow this dye to diffuse. I leave it for probably hours or days. I allow it to diffuse through this hydrogel. And after it has diffused, I use a pipette to extract each layer of these hydrogels into, into this plate. And when I extract this into this place, I also do some this fluorophore as well. I also make some dilutions of this. Then from this, I use an instrument called this instrument called fluorescence microplate reader, which I use to determine the fluorescence intensity. And this gives an idea of, okay, this is how the drug diffuses through this hydrogen. So just to highlight, this technique, this instrument here, I'm not the one that developed this instrument. I didn't develop this instrument. I didn't develop this plate. But the basic thing is I'm just putting together different things that has been developed in order to execute my project. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when you are building your research methodology, you could use data from people that they already published data. You could use that. Some data are available online, like if you are using quantitative data, qualitative data to achieve your research methodology. So that's why you have to like think critically about your objective, and your objective should determine, okay, how you plan to execute this. So all these instruments, I didn't develop any of these instruments, but the brain behind it, like the methodology behind it was what I put together in order to achieve my research objective. So now, what are the things I need to put together in my research methodology? How do I build a strong research methodology to convince people that, okay, this method I've proposed to study how particles diffuse in hydrogel, how do I convince people that this method is valid? And how do I tell people that, okay, these are the potential things that are associated with this method? Can you use this method for this purpose or not? That is where research methodology comes in. So first, I talk, okay, before going to that, and as I said, that hydrogels are of different types. So the first thing I highlighted in my research methodology is, or what I should think about is, what are the materials I need for my experiments? And for instance, you have to state clearly, and another thing you have to highlight, you have to take note is that when you are building your research methodology or when you are writing your research methodology, you have to be concise. You have to go straight to the point. You have to be specific. So that is one of the things you should take note. like I talked about the various materials, the chemical I use in making my materials, and I also discuss about where I obtain this material from. So there is nothing hidden about research methodology. So when you're writing your research methodology, either for publication or for project, you have to be transparent as much as possible, because your research methodology is what other people will also bid on in order to execute their project. Am I running out of time? Okay, I still have about 12 or 15 minutes, but I'll be done before that. So those are the important things you have to take note, is that if people are reading my project without me being there, are they going to understand it? So that is why your methodology is really important. So I highlighted all the chemicals I use. Now, then, I also said I use like fluorescent particles of different sizes. Now, I have to list all these particles and how I got about these particles. So I know some people might not really, some people that are not in engineering background might not really understand what, yeah. But the basic thing here is that for the fluorescent particle, I have to list the fluorescent particle I used and also the unique properties of this fluorescent particle. So for instance, one of the fluorescent particle I use is fluorescein. I don't need to give people details about fluorescein. I don't need to give people where fluorescein is discovered from. I don't need. The major thing I need here is what is really important about fluorescein that is related to my research. So, and that is where like I discuss about the excitation and emission. So when building your research methodology, you have to filter out the important information, and you have to leave the important information and discard irrelevant information. So also another aspect is the preparation of these fluorescent particles. I also discussed about that. So yeah. Then the other thing that is also important here is that I discuss in details about all the materials I use. That is an important aspect of your research methodology. So for instance, I talk about the fluorescent particle. I know that some fluorescent particle, when you after making them, they are not always pure. And how I purify these fluorescent particles. So those are some of the things you need to like really include in your research methodology. And this is also where like different uh, this is where you have to seek online sources to see the various method by which they have done this. And I'm going to also use another project to highlight that. So in the preparation of the material I use, so another aspect is, how did I prepare this hydrogel I'm making? I said this method for determining how particle that is in hydrogel. They developed different method. They've developed some that could be used for large for hard hydrogel. Now I'm developing a method that is used for soft hydrogel. So I have to state, okay, what are the various things this what are the various hydrogels I mean by these soft hydrogels? And this is where I talk about, okay, these are the hydrogels and how do I prepare this hydrogel? I stated it there in specific because the reason is because when other people want to use my methodology in order to achieve another project, they have to able to understand it. So just use this as an example before I just run through the other slide. So in the preparation of my hydrogel, see how my research methodology goes. I say the different percentages of agarose hydrogel 0.05, 0.1, and 0.2 were prepared by mixing 0.05, 0.1, and 0.2 grams of agarose in 100 molecule water, respectively. The agarose were dissolved by heating the mixture at temperature of 101 degrees Celsius for 150 seconds using a microwave. So in general, what I'm trying to say here is that your research methodology, you have to be specific. You have to just go into specific details you need other people to know when if they want to carry out this project. And that is just what I want to like highlight here, and how this hydrogen were formed. So basically, when you are developing your research methodology, you have to state it in such a way that other people can follow and they can also repeat the same experiment. And these are some of the things that is going to validate, okay, these are this method you are using is valid and it can be trusted. So here is just like, okay, the second to the last aspect of this is I'm using quantitative data and I'm also using qualitative data. So for the qualitative data is that, for instance, this instrument called scanning electron microscope is a common method that has been used. I don't know about this method before, and I'm not the one that developed, I'm not the first person to use this method. But when I want to use it for my own research objective, I have to state how I use this technique in order to use my own project. And that is why it's very important for you to highlight the specific details you've used in executing your project, the specific details you've used in executing your project successfully. So, for instance, this method has been used by other people for different purposes. So, when designing my research methodology, when I thought about my research objective, I mean, everything here is not about like, oh, I tried it the first time and it worked. So, and that is where your research methodology comes in. When building it, I first think, okay, these are the method they've used before to do this qualitative analysis. How do I plan to use this method? Then I tried different method. It wasn't working. Then I first tried, okay, let's say for all the hydrogel, I used large volume, it was not working. I used small volume. So I tried different method. But basically, when I'm writing my research methodology, I have to like state there specific. I don't need to like tell people the story of, okay, I use this method, I use that method, I use that method. So in specific, I have to highlight it that, okay, I use this volume of hydrogel in order to be able to obtain my qualitative data. So another thing is for people that are using research methodology that has to do with computational work, you have to state like every aspect of your research, like every what each aspect means. For instance, I'm using computational analysis also for in my methodology. All these parts, what each part of this, what it represents, are also like stated. So the last part, which is very important aspect that I believe that people shine away from, is the limitations of their project. So for instance, when you're developing a research methodology, there's no research methodology, there's no research method you want to use in this world that doesn't have its potential limitation. But I've realized that some people, when they are writing their research methodology, they try to shy away from these limitations of their research, and which shouldn't be. So, for you to write a strong research methodology, you have to actually highlight some of the limitations of your project. But you have to also have it in the back of your mind that even though there are limitations, but when you weigh the limitations to the advantages, does the advantages supersede the limitations? Those are some of the things you should actually highlight. So, for instance, I'm highlighting the limitation of my research so that people that want to do similar research for other purpose, they will know, okay, for instance, the limitation is that I cannot use this for some kind of devices or for some type of hydrogel. So, which means people that develop this type of hydrogel that use microfluidic device, they don't need to use like my method. They know that, okay, it cannot work for them. So those are some of the things why, or that's one of the reasons why your research methodology is really important. And the another, just to highlight this for people that are not in science, people that are in public arts or do commercial courses, or that are in commercial class, or like research not STEM related. So this paper here, it talks about the various experiences of customers who own a pet. So they are trying to evaluate the experience of these customers that own a pet in like when they visit restaurants. What are their experiences when they visit a restaurant? And in this manuscript, they stated there that the method they use, the data they are using is not, they didn't obtain this data. They use available data that are online in achieving their objective. So if you see their methodology, you see it is stated there that, okay, how the data they use for their research methodology, how it is being acquired. So that is why when building your research methodology, you have to take due diligence in, once you know your objective, you have to take due diligence in seeking other sources to see how these people have acquired their data. What are the things they've used to acquire the data? And you can see, I said they're trying to talk about the experience of customer who own a pet in some the experience of customer who own a pet in some restaurant. And when they are talking about their methodology or the data sample they use, they focus on the restaurant review. So you cannot be evaluating experience of customer who own a pet in restaurant, the experience in restaurant. You cannot be evaluating that and, for instance, be going to like experience or using school as a case study. So the area you are using is also really important, and you have to be clear with that. And lastly, this is the last aspect I'll be discussing about, which is another aspect that has to do with like how to use first. So this research group, they are trying to use a microscope in studying how fluorescent particles diffuses through the vein of mice. So the limitation is that though there are different methods that has been used to study how dye could move through mice or animal model. And the reason why they do this is because of some experiments requires like labeling live mice, labeling them with dye, and study how these particles or how this fluorescent dye moves in them, and this could help them to like draw some conclusions. So this research group are proposing another method that can be used, or even when using this fluorescent microscopy. So the limitation is that there are some dyes, some animals where they inject them with dye. There are some part that the dye could not reach, and this kind of creates some void. It creates some empty spaces in the research, and this kind of always alter research projects. So what this research group are proposing is that now we are also going to use this method that has been commonly used. We are not changing anything, but the only thing we are proposing is that we are trying to to develop a to complement it by developing another thing that could be used as like a negative contrast. Instead of the place being void or just being empty, they can use it as a background. So that is what they are trying to propose. So here they are not using, there's nothing new they are developing. They're just trying to build on the existing knowledge. And the ethical consideration they took in place was that since they're using animal model, you see, they seek approval for institutional animal care in the school. And they also talked about like the various animals they use for the various animals, their age range and stuff, and how these dye are prepared and how they're injected. So in general, when you are building your research methodology, you have to think about the ethical consideration. You have to think about like other method that has been developed. What are you adding? What is the research? What is the research plan? What is the research design? How do you plan to achieve this? So these are just like the how they obtain their data and the various method, the software they use, and you can see. I mean, this is just part of transparency. They use this MATLAB, they use so their own method is that they are trying to eliminate these empty spaces that are related to this. But even though we are proposing a new method, but we are still using what has already been done before. So there must be transparency when building your research methodology. All these online sources you've used, it has to be clearly stated. So there is no hidden thing about research. So, in conclusion, when you try to finish your manuscript, there are some important questions you need to ask yourself about your materials and method in order to in your materials and method. Because, as I said, the methodology, the purpose of it is that other people can also back up on it and use it for your research. And also, you are trying to like sell out a method you've used or how you plan to like as to achieve your objective. So the things you have to think about is that is there sufficient details uh, in this project that I've highlighted that will make this experiment to be reproducible? Is the details I've highlighted, is it sufficient enough for people to reproduce this? And also then the next question is Is there excessive information that could be removed without affecting the interpretation of your methodology? Am I putting too much of information that are not related? Those are some of the another questions you should ask yourself. Now, are the limitations of my research project or the methodology I've used, are they included? Do I include all these limitations, or I'm trying to shine away from it? No. Also, what are previous methodology considered? For instance, in my own research projects, I'm not backing up on any research methodology that has been used before. I'm developing a new method. So which means I'm not using previous research methodologies. So I'm using my own new method. So which means other people that are using if this method is not clearly stated for people to understand, then which means people might not really understand it, and this might not even be accepted for publication. So that is why you have to like really think about all those things. And also, am I choosing appropriate controls for the objective I'm using? For instance, you want to study the effect of energy drink on athletes. So, what are my control? I'm using energy and I'm studying the effect of energy drink. Then my control could be like, okay, people that doesn't take energy drink. So you have to also think about your control when designing your methodology. Another aspect is, are all appropriate citations included if I'm using online sources to achieve my objective? If I'm using online sources, online data for my research method, am I citing all this method also? And lastly is the source of each reagent listed. For instance, if you are doing an experimental work that has to do with ordering materials online, am I listing all the reagents that are needed? So those are the checklists you should follow when finalizing your research and methodology session. So conclusively, the key message here is that just as no one trusts a house built without a plan, the academic world doesn't trust research without a clear methodology. So your methodology makes your work strong, reliable, and respected. So if your methodology is not robust enough, people are not going to trust your research, and it might not even be published, talking of like increasing your credibility. So yeah, thank you, Philip. Now, if you have any question, I don't know, you can ask.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Ayomide Adeoye. Yeah, that's a lot of information that you have passed down. I just have a quick question for to be sure that people were following you when you were talking about the methodology. So the question, you can type it in the chat, is why do you think research methodology is important? Why is research methodology important? Why is research methodology important? The first two response will be winning a recharge card of 500 naira each. Why do you think research methodology is important? Looks like we didn't have anybody following the conversation so far.
Sorry, are we to type or we are to
Type,
reply? Like,
type.
okay.
I think people are typing, so most likely it might take time. Or you can, if you want, you can just allow
Okay.
people to talk up
Yeah,
too.
I have one person already. And then our speaker today is willing to offer those two guys that will be winning the prize for today, free mentorship. It's not easy to get hold of Dr. Ayomide, but if he says that he want to mentor you,
I'm not a doctor, Philip.
well, doctors soon to be doctor. Is any other person typing? Okay, I think I have more. Hanolu, that response is a bit shabby to know the limitations of what? Yeah, I think I will go with what Bakari said, ensures credibility and reliability. So, yeah. So I think I have the winners of that
Sorry,
award will be,
I
sorry?
think you are missing someone. There is first resp
Yes, I saw first response. So the first response is on blueprint. Yeah, I saw that. Judah
okay.
Akintayo. It's important because it serves as a blueprint of the research as a building plan, serves that of a building project. So, I guess those that will really have the award for tonight are Judah Kintayo and Bakari Sadiq. Kanoluapo, sorry, I think that's a bit shabby. I don't know. Any other person, Ayomide, you can judge that response from Anoluapo. But it's a little bit shabby to me to know the limitations of what. But yes, ensure credibility and reliability. Sharon tells you how you are going to carry out your research. Thank you. It gives a step, Abel. It gives a step by steps you have followed and credibility to your work. Yes, it provides better understanding of the research carried out. That's true. It's important to show other researchers to ensure validity of the project work. Yeah, so if you all look at it, I think the most common word from what I'm seeing here is credibility and reliability. And that's why materials and method session is very important in your project. So, and you should look at it from this yardstick that if somebody pick my research work today, if you follow the steps that are highlighted, would they be able to reproduce exactly what I said that I've done? Reproducibility. People must be able to use your research and methodology, follow the same thing, and try to reproduce exactly the same thing that you have done. All right, thank you everyone for participating. Uh, for Judah Akintayo and Bakari Sadiq, you can send an email to the email I'm typing below after now. I hope I'm getting
Sorry, I
to.
have a question for the
Yes,
facilitator.
we go to the question and answer now. All right. Over question and answer session now. Yeah, you can take the first floor, Bakari Sadiq. Over to you. It's
Okay, my
Bakari.
question
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
like this. When the speaker was talking about methodology, and he was saying like you have to state your own method, like bring in your own method on your own, and also following what others have done. So I'm not asking that. Let's say, for example, I'm into like a research now that states okay the efficacy of the drugs. Like others might have done it. Let's say I'm working on maybe anti-malaria drugs now. So I'm now asking that, am I bringing my own method? Like instead of me following what others have done, like am I bringing a method, probably maybe to measure a quantity of a dose or something like that? Am I bringing it to what others might not have done? Like I don't get that part that I said. So I don't know if you understand what I'm actually saying.
Yeah. Should I go ahead, Philip?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Just to highlight before I answer his question, Sadiq is my good friend. We went to the same we went to the same high school, School of Science. So in order to answer your question, so what I was trying to say there is that I said before you start a research methodology, you have to have an objective. You have to focus on your objective or the aim of your project. So there might have been different method that has been developed in order to achieve the same thing you want to achieve. But what you want to do here is that it's either you want to develop a new method that can overcome some of the limitations of the previous method that has been developed. Or it's either you are using the same method but for different purpose. But I can't be doing a research, or I can't have a research objective in which what I'm trying to do has been done by other people, or there's no novelty. So research methodology comes in. That is why you have to like take time to do some research on various very different method that has been used to achieve something similar to that before. So, and that is where you have to like think, okay, you might not be developing a new method. You might just be improving on existing method. So there is no like, it's not like a must for you to develop a new method. Like for instance, in my own project where I develop a new method is because I'm the instrument to acquire this method has been used by other researchers, but they are not focusing on the application in the way me I'm using it for. So that is why I said I'm developing a new method, but I'm using existing instrument that has been used. So some people could develop a new instrument to like do their research project and stuff like that. So it just depends on your research objective. So you might be developing a new method, or you might be building on existing method, but you are just creating some novelty in the existing method. Remember that the purpose of research is to improve knowledge or to create a new knowledge. So if you put that at the back of your mind, then you know that okay, I might not really be developing a new method. I might be building on existing knowledge. So I think I don't know if I answered your question, so
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other question? Yeah, please go ahead, Adeoye.
Yeah, good day everyone. So I have this question that has been like always been bothering me. Is it possible to write a project or a research without uh the help of AI? Because like is it possible to write something without the help of AI or without copying or paraphrasing other people's words? That's my question. Thank you.
Uh, that is a nice question, and to be honest with you, is that the world we are right now is evolving around AI. But even though AI has its own like positive aspects, it also have like the way AI is going to think for you is literally different from the way you are, like it should be different from the way you think yourself. It might actually like contribute to the knowledge you have, but to answer that question, I think AI can be useful sometimes depending on how you use it. So it can contribute to the knowledge, and but you have to have like you just have to have a knowledge of what you want to do. So is it possible to eradicate AI? Is it possible to avoid it? I would say you should try as much as possible to avoid it, because like for instance, if you are submitting a project as well for like publication as well, they kind of evaluate that, and people reading, I mean, people that have been conversant with like manuscript review and stuff, sometimes when you use AI, we kind of, there's a way you can kind of have idea of like, okay, you are using AI because, I mean, I use AI sometimes for necessary stuff to ask questions as much. But the only thing I can say is you can use AI to your advantage in the sense that you can use AI to think of what people have used done before related to that, to just like reduce the number of search or whatever. But I won't say I can be disregarded completely. But what I will say is you have to you have to use it smartly, and if you can avoid it as much as you can in your research. And one thing you should also have take note is that your research project should not be copied on AI. I mean, that's just my own opinion. I might be wrong. your research project will not be copied on AI. I mean, everyone is using AI, so your data really matters. The privacy of your data really matters. So, if Philip has something to add, I think it can also buttress more on it.
Yeah, can it be avoided? Yes, it can be avoided because you have people in the 90s, 80s writing hundreds of pages. And at times I wonder to how did they do it? Writing hundreds of pages of book from the scratch when there is a little work that you can even reference to. And people are coming up with something novel. So that I think that answers the question that yes, we can do without the AI. So it's just a way that we need to be careful with this advantage that we have in our generation with AI, not to rely excessively on AI. Yes, it can be a tool that you can use for your advantage, but it should not do the majority of the writing for you. One, AI is not at the point where it can do a perfect job right now. Because if it can do a perfect job right now, nobody will publish all these publications that we are talking about will no longer make any sense again once it's get to that point. But still need people to do the work, do the thinking, go to the lab, carry out competition work, and you have to put that computational work that you do yourself, especially the research and the methodology session is your work, it's what you did. AI cannot help you with that, right? You have to think, you have to put it down in your own word. Probably you want to take it back to AI to reconstruct it for you, grammatical error and all of that. That can be good, but if you want to write the method and material and method, I'm sure that AI cannot save you in putting down what you did in writing first. At least you have to generate that idea. AI cannot generate that idea for you. But yes, it's possible. Like you said, you can use AI to your advantage, but it's best if you can avoid this as much as possible. Or you have to be smart in the way you use it. So it's an
And
offense in public. It's not really. I mean, in publication now, some journals are encouraging, but they want you to mention it. You have to give what's the word now? You have to
public.
mention that, yeah, you have to give credit to the use of AI. You have to mention the kind of AI that you use before they can accept it. And like he said, when you are reviewing some papers, you already know that this word is AI word. You can never think in this way. We all know the structure that AI will give you when you start reading something. So it's not like AI can give something so special, but the way you will think, the way you will put your thought down, it can be totally different from how other people will bring it. We write the same thing.
Just to add to what Philip said, if you are concerned about your writing, there's like Grammarly that you could actually incorporate into your Microsoft Word that could also help to improve the fluency of your word and also kind of eliminate like excessive word or paraphrase your word. Yeah.
Any other question? All right. If there is no other question, guess we can bring this program to a close now. A very big
Yes,
thank you. Oh yeah,
I have a quick.
go ahead,
Okay,
please.
okay. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Okay, please, I would like to ask. See, okay, you said that you are the one that develop your research methodology. So I would like to know how were you able to navigate and to navigate to come up with the research methodology you use? What are the challenges and how were you able to overcome those challenges while developing your research methodology?
Is the question directed to me?
Yeah, that should be your
Yeah.
question. You are the presenter.
Oh, can you please ask the question again? I kind of lost my train of thought. I thought
Okay,
you
right.
asked.
Okay, my question is, okay, you said that you are the one that developed your research methodology by yourself,
Yes,
that you
that's
did
true.
not the previous research methodology in the literature. So I'm asking, how are you able to develop the research methodology you use, and what are the challenges that you encounter during the time you are developing the research methodology, and also how are you able to overcome those challenges?
Mm. Yeah, that is really a nice question, and thank you for bringing that up. So, this is where mentorship comes in as well. So, like, I'm working with my PI. I also showed that in the author. So, we were thinking of initially, I wanted to work on a project. So, the project I want to work on, I realized that there's no method I can use to achieve the objective of my project. So that is why we have to like think back. So that is why I said sometimes you have to like have a focus on where you are going. And when you have a focus, at times it might not be a straight way. It might make you to like take a step back before even achieving your project. For instance, my case in specific, the main aim of my research, I haven't gone there yet. I have to like take a step back, and that is why I did this project. So it's more of like, okay, what are the I'm trying to study how I'm trying to develop a method that a material that could be used for treatment of disease. So there I have to develop a method, use a technique that has been used to study how particle diffuses in hydrogen. And when I was going through the literatures of how I can use that method, I realized that some of the method they've developed, it has some limitations such as the volume of materials you can use. I have like about, let's say 10 ml. For instance, this is just an instance. I have about 10 ml. But the various method that has been developed before, it can only take 2 ml. It can take maximum of 3 ml. And also the type of hydrogel I'm using, types of material I'm using, the method that has been published before, I cannot use for my type of material. So which means now the material one is different from the material I'm using. The volume I need is also different from the volume that has already been published. Then I have to think of, okay, how can we just come up with something that could be used? So it's more like we just try different method. We tried one and we realized that okay, this works. So like also reading some other research papers they've done, realize that they've used this method to do another kind of another research project. But the project they use it for, we can think of it like, okay, if they can use this for this project, we can also use it for our own project. So it's more like you bringing pieces together. In my first slide I show a Lego, bringing Lego together to build a house. It takes like one, I'm not displacing the grace of God, and also take critical thinking. So it's more like critical thinking and also having like a good mentor, and that is where your PI comes in, your professor if you're working with an expert in the field. So you can just both of you can liaise or come together to like think of a technique or a method. So it's more of like collaboration with people, like coming up with a plan. So that is why I said first thing is you have to have a focus. Then once you have a focus, then you can look at other sources that has been developed. So other sources that can be developed that has been developed before can just channel your brain towards something different. You understand? So more like the drug they've been developing these days. Initially, when they want to develop, they can develop a drug, and this will be used by anyone. And sometimes it works for some people, sometimes it doesn't work for some people. And later in the long run, they figure out that okay, we can use this method. We can create a particular kind of drug for a specific type of individual, and that is kind of where the where drug or medications development is actually going towards now. So it's more of like backing up on existing knowledge and using the existing knowledge to like develop your own method. And that's why I said when you're writing your research methodology, you have to put details and limitations of your research so that it can guide other researchers on how to do it. So it's more of like me doing some research on like the various method that has been developed, their limitations, the various that has been developed, their limitations, instrument that has been used before, and the limitations of this instrument. Then combining this together, me and my PI combining it together to develop a research methodology. So it's more of like seeking other stuff that has been done, looking at their limitations and coming up with something different. Yeah, I hope I answered the question. So the limitations, as I said in your last question, is I know that my research, the method I develop has a limitation. Then I have to state it there that okay, even though it has a limitation, but it can still provide opportunity for people that are doing this kind of research. So that is just what that is. I think I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, thank you. You answered my question because, like you mentioned in your presentation, most research work, if you go through the methodology, you might not be able to pinpoint the limitations, the pro and the and con of the research methodology. But from your own work, you're able to say that you list the limitation and the your work. So I think that was a nice one. So thank you very much. You answered my question.
Yeah, you're welcome. And that is why, like most times now, and that is the role of a reviewer. Sometimes you might have a good research project, you might have a good research objective, and when people review your work, they might just reject it, and some might not even give you the reason why your paper. They might not give you the reason why it is being rejected because they are not really convinced about your plan, and that is why like you have to like read other people manuscript or people project to see how they've done it, and that will also like guide you. So no, just in general, no research methodology or research this thing is perfect, but you have to really clearly highlight, think of the advantages of the one you are proposing over the one that has been developed, and the problem you are trying to solve. Are you solving a problem or you are adding to the previous problem that is already existing? So I think that will also help.
Yeah, at times you may not find the limitations in the methodology. Yeah, it's good if you incorporate it in the methodology. I've seen people also putting it in their conclusion.
Yeah,
And I
yes.
personally, I try to encourage people more in the conclusion to whenever I review paper to be like, hey, you've not talked about the limitation of your findings, talk into it and trying to channel it into opening the eyes of people that are reading your work into kind of talking about what are the future prospects, like what do you think needs to be addressed? Because the limitation at times could be a very simplified assumption that if somebody can take it up again and be like, yes, this assumption that you do not consider, I need to take that into consideration and see how that is going to affect the results, right? So looking at the limitation, looking at the research methodology, you can get to derive your own you can derive your own methodology. And yes, it has to be novel. I mean, novel in the sense that, like you said, it can be something that already been done, but has not been applied to your own case. Yeah, that's also novelty because you're bringing in another methodology from somewhere you're applying it to your case. Yeah, or you can build your own methodology. For example, those that work in computational model, like what I mentioned now, maybe there's a model now that can predict the performance of something, but they make some assumptions, and you are coming up as a to want to do another research or to build on that research, and you'd be like, yes, I'm developing. Because at times reviewers or public journal editors, they like the word novel, new. If they reject your paper and you don't know how to go about it, just find a way of saying, I'm proposing a novel or new method of this, or you have to be proposing a new or novel method indeed. But just adding one assumption, finding a way of integrating a parameter to cater for that assumption at times can be a method on its own that you have developed. So you can say that, yes, you develop a model or you develop a new method to solve something. So, but again, you have to understand what has been done in the literature before you can be able to build on that and come up with something that maybe no one has done or something that nobody has applied that same techniques to solving that particular problem. All right. Any other question?
Okay. Also, I want to ask about, okay, you talk during your presentation, mentioned that before you can proceed for a research methodology, you need to inform the policy. Is it the policy body is it the journal review, or to know whether they can be able to approve your research methodology? Is it in all cases that you must inform the body before you can proceed on your project?
That's a good question. So, for instance, depending on your research objective, for instance, if I'm trying to do a research objective that have to do with animals, I want to use animals. You have to have a research plan. So before using animals for any research project, it has to be approved in your school. So for instance, in your school, you have some organization or body that reviews your protocol for animals, for using animals or stuff. So it has to be approved by them before you carry out your research project. And even when you are publishing your paper, you have to state it clearly that this was use of animals were approved before use were approved by so before using it. And some instance, some cases in which it has to do with like using X-ray or very toxic material or stuff that could be harmful. You have to state it there that okay, you have to like actually seek their consent before using it, because you are trying to solve a problem, but people also don't want you to create another problem. And for instance, when you are also like recruiting people for your study, you can't just recruit people for your study. This also has to be approved by a review board in your school, in which is, for instance, if I want to recruit people for like let's say I want to collect data that is related that to the use of energy drink or stuff like that. I can't just recruit people without like seeking approval from the organization that has to do with like recruiting participants in recruiting participants for your study. So in general, I don't know how this works, because when I was in Nigeria, I didn't do anything that has to do with like using animals or recruiting participants. But if you are doing that, actually there is always an organization that approves of these things before you carry it out. And if you are also like extracting data from online, there are always like online sources to extract data. You have to also state it there that oh, you are extracting data from online. So yeah, you have to like seek approval before, when you design your research, before using animals or before using participants. And when you are using participants, you have to tell them the potential risk that is related. That is why it has to be approved first before you use participants in the first place. So even when it is approved, when you recruit your participants, you have to also tell them, okay, this is the project I'm working on. This is the potential risk that is associated with this project. If you want to continue, yes, you can continue. If at any point you want to drop out from the study, you can drop out. So yeah, it requires approval in some cases. But for instance, in my own project, I'm not doing anything that has to do with you recruiting people, using animal, using stuff. So I don't need any approval. I don't need any approval. But of course, I have to do some safety trainings. But yeah.
Yeah, I think to add to that, most times you need approval when you are dealing with human subject research. And like the way we treat animal back in Nigeria is not the same way they treat animal here. Animal here, it has respect. Like you can't just kill animal anyhow. They can sue you for it. So you have to, even if you are using animal as a subject of research, you have to, you have to take permission. You have to go through the necessary board. In each university, they have a board that is in charge of of ethics. I think they call it ethics approval or something. It has to do with something ethics. So each university, a research center university, we have a department that's in charge of that you have to apply for. You can't just go ahead and start using animal randomly or start recruiting people to do even those that do social science research. If you are dealing with something that we have to do with emotion of people, you have to take permission because, of course, you are dealing with human beings as your subject of research. But if you are just simulating a bridge, how the force acting on the bridge will lead to the failure of the bridge. I mean, you are just designing, so you don't have to worry about getting approval for that. Nobody will ask you to carry out research where you put the same weight that you are putting your simulation. You want to have enough that same amount of people on that bridge. No, we don't do we don't do that kind of research in engineering. But yes, human subject research, animal research, you need to take permission as long as you are dealing with living things like animal and humans. Yes, you need to go through those protocols and understand the risk involved and all of that. I hope that answers your question.
Just to add to that, and that
Yeah.
is why you have to come up with a good research plan, and that is where your research methodology comes in. So the research plan is like, okay, these are what you want to do. And these are some of the things you also have to share with the review board. Okay, if they say that, okay, this method is good, then you can proceed. Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you very much. Okay. Please, I would like to have the record of this meeting.
Yeah, you can watch it here. Let me try to get the link before I close. You also have the last meeting you recorded. So in case you
Okay.
want to look at it.
Okay.
So I've posted the our YouTube link, our YouTube channel.
Okay.
Can look for the video there. So I will upload the one for today later, but you can see the one
Okay.
for last week somewhere
Okay.
there.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I
Thank you
think.
very much. I'm very grateful.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining the call today, and a big thank you to our speaker today. That's a lot of information that you have passed down to us, and I know it's a lot of work. Thank you for taking the time to prepare a very nice PowerPoint presentation. Well appreciated. And to the participant today, I do hope that you learned one or two things, or there is one or two things that you're taking away from the meeting today. Again, to the winner of today's gift, Judah Akintayo and Bakari Sadiq, please reach out to me via email, and we'll proceed with that. Yes, Ayomide, will you like to send the presentation? Would you love to share that?
Yeah, I share with you too.
Yeah, I can send it to my email, and I can get it across.
Oh, okay. Of course, sure, I can.
Yeah.
If anyone also has question, or you need any question, or you need like anything that has to do with research methodology, you can follow me on LinkedIn, ask me question. Yeah, and if there is also anyone that is planning to like apply for grad school and you need mentorship or question, I mean, Philip has been my friend and we started the journey together. So and Egbon to Boyega Adebayo is also like my brother. So I'll be glad to provide free mentorship if you're interested. And I mean, not only me, we'll be working together with Philip and Mr. Boyega as well. But be sure you are willing to start the journey before reaching out. Yeah, I'll be glad to help.
Be sure you are ready to do the work. So I want to share the link to the Google Drive. You can send the PowerPoint to my email. You can check the Google Drive later, or you can write an email to the email that I provided in the chat, and then I can send the link to you. But at the end of the 5 day webinar, 5 weeks webinar, I will surely send out all the links. I don't want to be sending it after all the meetings, but I will send out all the necessary link. So thank you everyone for your time. I know it's Saturday night. This is the
Sorry,
time where
please. Good evening.
good evening.
Sorry, please. Good evening. The network did not allow me to join very well. You said you were sharing something. I'm lost. Sorry. Can I
Yeah,
get a little brief of the class?
there will be I will upload the video on our the recording. I will upload it on our YouTube channel, and you can watch it later. But yeah, I think I posted the link. Did you get the link to the YouTube channel?
So should I check it now from the call chat, call message?
Yeah, I think the last one I posted in the chat is for the Google Drive where you will see the PowerPoint presentation for all the workshops. But I posted the link to our YouTube channel where you can see all the recordings from this program. Is that okay? Is that okay? Oh. All right. Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you for joining. And next week, is somebody
Hello.
speaking? Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
the YouTube channel, sir.
The YouTube channel, I think I posted it. Oh, let me
Please,
try to post.
can you help us to repost this, sir?
My work is easy because it keeps everything organized, automated, effortless. Let me show you how.
Who is the motivational? Who is the motivational speaker? All right. So next week we'll be looking at we'll be having Meshach Adeoye. Let me share that PowerPoint. Here is my slide. Before we are done for today, I just want to share about what we'll be talking about next week.
Sorry, the network just logged me out again. Sorry, please. So where do you say I will see the link to the PowerPoint presentation?
I shared it in the chat, but I will share that 1 minute. So next week, July 26th, we'll be having Misha Kadere. We'll be talking on data analysis and interpretation. So I believe you don't want to miss this session as well. We have been progressing from laying the foundation and mastering literature review to building a strong methodology. And now we'll be talking about data analysis and interpretation. So thank you once again for joining today. And hopefully see you again next week when we'll be taking another part of this webinar series. And thank you all for your patience. And again, I hope you learned one thing or the other in the course of the program, the presentation today. And thank you once again to our speaker for today. We appreciate the effort, and we wish you all the best in your program and wish everybody all the best as well in their endeavors. Thank you for joining and see you next week. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.